It is Ryan Cameron Uncensored, and we are very happy to have in the studio, based on what we're seeing in the news every day, especially today, Ali Zaidi, National Climate Advisor. Is that right? Did I say it right?
That's right. That's my title.
National Climate Advisor. Does that mean, as a special assistant to the president, you've had climate change meetings and sessions daily? Because what's going on around the country and around the world it's in real time.
Yeah, and the president is super focused on both the challenges that climate change presents, but also on making sure we're unlocking the massive opportunity for our economy, for workers, for consumers, for American families. This is a big deal, and I'm glad to get a chance to chat with you about it.
When we talk about, EVs, and we go from just an idea to where now it's something that not only can people take advantage of, but also get some tax incentives by going out and getting one of these vehicles. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, look, number one is the number of vehicles that are available.
Right.
We used to be talking about a few models here and there. Now we've got over 100, and many of which have sticker prices that are below 40, some below 30K for a new vehicle. That means the average vehicle, EV, might actually be cheaper than the average vehicle on the market. There's a reason for that. It's because the cost of those batteries has been coming down. The range has been getting better, so you can drive 300 miles with just one charge.
Right.
There's more charging available. That's a big deal. And now, thanks to President Biden, we've got a $7,500 tax credit right on the hood of the car for a new vehicle and $4,000 for a used vehicle. For the first time, we got a tax credit that helps you buy a used electric vehicle so you never have to go to the gas station again. That's a big deal for families.
Right.
So with, climate change and what is the biggest issue that you're seeing today?
I'd love to say there's just one if we were that lucky.
I just pick one out the box. I know there's a bunch of them.
Well, just here in Georgia, you're seeing extreme heat, and it hits especially seniors and young people really hard. Folks with underlying conditions getting hit really hard by that. But on the coastline here in Georgia, you're seeing the hurricanes threaten folks there. Farmers here in the state impacted by drought and weird weather. You see the pollution that both contributes to climate change, but also comes out of tailpipes and power plants, hurt people in their lungs.
Right.
Trigger asthma attacks that keep people from going to work or going to school. So there are a lot of challenges, but candidly, we in the Biden administration are less focused on the gloom and doom part of this story and more on the good news, which is we got the solutions.
Right.
We can solve this problem.
Ali Zaidi, National Climate Advisor for the President of the United States, here on a tour, just kind of talking about some of the things that are being very positive. For people who were the naysayers about climate change, what do you say to these folks now? Because, it seems like, it's all made up, but it's really happening. The air quality, it used to be something where the next generation is going to be affected, but it's really happening in real time. What do you say to those people who were kind of like, meh?
Well, number one, it's right here and it's right now. This is not a conversation about the future. It's a conversation about what folks are facing down right now. Number two, it's something that disproportionately impacts Black and brown communities. And we got to be honest about that, right? You got a country where we had historically racist housing policy, redlining, which meant there were then and there are now today communities with more pavement and fewer trees. Those places are literally hotter than other communities. So not only is it impacting us right here, right now, there are actually folks who are bearing disproportionate impact. But let's get past the conversation about whether it's happening or not, because I think that's obvious. The question is, what can we do about it? And the good news is we've got the solutions. Electric vehicles. I went, not every day I get as the president's climate advisor to go to Home Depot in the morning, but I went to Home Depot this morning, and they've got things on sale that help us tackle the climate crisis, like a heat pump or more efficient windows. And now you get 30% tax credit to put that into your house. So it's not only cheaper on the front end, but it actually pays big dividends later because you're saving a bunch of energy. So it's whether it's getting from point A to point B in an electric vehicle, sealing up all that leakage in your home so you're saving money on your utility bill. It's a tremendous opportunity for folks all across the country.
We got more when we come back. Ali Zaidi, National Climate Advisor, Special Assistant to the President of the United States, right here on Ryan Cameron Uncensored. It is Ryan Cameron Uncensored. We're talking to Ali Zaidi, National Climate Advisor, Special Assistant to the President. What is binomics?
For a really long time, we've had this philosophy in Washington that if the wealthy and well-connected do well,
Right.
the good news will just trickle down to everybody else. Trickle down economics. And the president, I think, is a little bit more in touch with what happens on Main Street and in the real lives of the
Right.
American people. And he knows trickle down economics has not worked. So for the first time, really in a long time, we're putting the middle class at the center of our economic strategy, which means investing in bringing industries back to the United States instead of waving to them as they offshore to countries overseas. Investing in our workers,
Right.
meaning paying them decent wages, giving them benefits, access to retirement security,
Right.
instead of cutting corners and giving them a short shrift as our economy booms. And it means giving the market an injection of competition and choice. You know, President says capitalism without competition is exploitation. We like capitalism.
Right.
But we need rules of the road that make sure that it works for everybody. That's what Bidenomics is all about. An economy that works for everyone. And by the way, the rich are going to do just fine in this approach as well, but we're not going to wait for the opportunity to trickle down. We're going to build from the bottom up and the middle out.
You talked about it and specifically mentioning how people of color are affected. Can you go into the fact that a lot of, not trying to down any other previous administrations, but when it comes to policies and practices, people of color were kind of ignored, and President Biden is kind of making sure that he tells people, I recognize these issues, and I'm not just going to, walk the walk. I'm going to actually do what I said I'm going to do. How has that been, for you coming in and trying to implement some of these things when other people kind of maybe, glossed over it?
Look, it's hard work, and you got to stick to it. There's a reason why people threw up their hands before. It's because the economy as it is works for some people, just
Right.
not a lot of folks.
Right.
And doing this work is hard work. Now, you think about our housing policy in the past in this country that because of redlining has resulted in certain communities being literally hotter today. We're planting trees in those communities to deal with the heat effects that have been left over. We had a transportation policy that split communities by putting highways right in the middle of them. That's racist transportation policy. We now have funds to reconnect those communities, including $25 million to do that here in Atlanta. And we've got to make sure that as we invest this money, that it reaches everywhere. That's why the president's created this thing called the Justice 40 initiative, which means 40% of the benefits from all of this investment will flow to disadvantaged communities. We've got a map. We're measuring it. We're tracking it. We hold all of our agencies in the federal government accountable. Everybody's on the hook. It's everybody's job. It's going to be hard work, but we've got to get after it.
We got a question here as we close. 1-844-RYAN-222, 1-844-792-6222. They're saying, ask him, why are all the fish washing up on the shore?
We are seeing dramatic shifts in our ocean health, whether it's shifting temperatures, currents, the impact in terms of ocean acidification. So I don't know what this specific concern refers to, but we are seeing real impacts on our water bodies, whether it's in the ocean or in the Great Lakes and our rivers where there's hazardous algal blooms. We know those things are connected to a few different things. One is to climate change, which is causing this warming. Two is to runoff. We've been cutting corners in terms of regulating the pollution that comes out of industrial facilities. We've got to capture that at the source of the pollution. as opposed to letting it just wash into the ocean or into the bay. If we tackle this form of pollution, if we get our act together on climate, it's good news for folks who rely on these bodies of water either for recreation, they just go fishing for fun, or for us as consumers of a industry that is stood up on the back of a healthy environment. So we got to support our fishermen and get our act together.
It is Ryan Cameron Uncensored. Ali Zaidi, National Climate Advisor, Special Assistant to the President of the United States. We're talking about climate change and how you can help. You got something you want to ask him?
Yeah, I'm sure this is on everybody's mind with the forest fires in Canada, and everybody is being affected. Like, it's in Chicago right now. They're talking about they can hardly breathe. What type of effect? Like, should we be worried? You know, what's coming down? Like, what's going on as far as climate when that's concerned?
Yeah, we should be worried. We did something really bad to the environment, and now we're paying the consequences. And fires that are burning more frequently with greater ferocity in Canada, we're breathing that in our lungs in Washington, in Northern Virginia. It's just blanketing the entire East Coast. And it's a reality, by the way, that folks out west have been facing for a bunch of years. That sky turning orange, the gunk going in your lungs. But the good news is this. We know how to tackle this challenge. We can, first of all, we can attack the impacts that we're seeing. And that's why the president has hired the most wildland firefighters that we've ever had. Over 16,000 folks aimed at this challenge. We're equipping more planes to be able to drop water on these and respond to the fires in real time. We're working with the Canadians to identify those fires right at the outset so we catch them before they get too bad. But we've also got to get at that root cause. The reason we're seeing these impacts is because it's hotter in Canada, because there's more drought in Canada, and that's literally fuel for these fires. So how do we get out of that quandary? We deploy clean energy. And it's not just the solar farms that folks have seen, but it's new technologies. For example, off the coast of Virginia, Dominion Power is now building offshore wind, right? Offshore wind, where the wind blows, by the way, a lot more out in the ocean. 50%, 60% of the time, those turbines are spinning. Right. They're going to send power back on the grid. But that's not just good news for the consumers of that electricity. It's good news for the ports that are going to come back to life because they have to go support these offshore wind farms. It's good news for the steel mills that are forging the steel for these factories. It's good news for the electricians that are getting employed. They're building new purpose-built vehicle, a big ship in Texas just to serve this offshore wind farm. Nice. So this is like a huge opportunity, but we've got to get after it faster than we are right now.
We want to say thanks for stopping by. I mean, we know that this tour has been, I'm sure you like doing this and getting the message out. I wish that, we didn't have to have a special advisor for climate change, but it is very necessary, and we appreciate your time today and talking to our listeners.
Thanks so much. It's really good to be on with you.
We got more coming up. It's Ryan Cameron Uncensored.